Ben, if you're trying to say something, it's not really coming through.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was
Okay. Okay.
indignant. Of course, this is the day my computer decides to have slight problems. All right, make it work. All right, we'll go ahead and do roll call. Senator Hedelman.
I'm here.
Excellent. Senator Watson. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Here.
Oh, excellent.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks. Delegate Allen. Rachel, MD. Rachel Jones, I think I saw you. You are here. And I see Thompson. I am here. Kim's Comptroller's Office. No. Anyone from the Comptroller's Office? Amanda.
Here.
Excellent. Diego.
Here.
Excellent. Scott Wilson.
Here.
Excellent. Paul cannot make it, but he sent me his edits. Josh.
Here.
And Matt.
Here.
Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, we got quorum. We can go ahead. All right. Thank you, everyone, for calling in. Goal of today is to review and approve the report if you are ready to. If not, then to discuss when would be a good time in the next couple of days for you all to reconvene to give me the thumbs up to file the report after you've had adequate time to review it. I know you all got it Friday night, so my apologies for that. I have received edits from Paul, which I put in here. Scott, I also have your edits. I haven't got them into the document yet, but those those all appeared to just be wordsmithing, so they didn't look like they were substantive edits.
True.
Awesome. So I guess before we start walking through the report, do members feel that you are ready today to vote on the report for filings? Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I don't feel ready now. I would only need another day or two. I've read most of the report. I just didn't make time before this meeting to finish reviewing it in detail. So I'm happy to say, like, I can get back to you by Wednesday morning, just personally with my own time frame.
Okay, that's fair. Matt?
Likewise, I'm on page 41, so it would be good to have another day or two if that's possible. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Hedelman?
I need some more time as well.
That's fair.
I agree.
Members, awesome. So would members like me to, like we talked about, finding 15 to 30 minutes Wednesday afternoon or Thursday to convene to finish this?
I can just, I'm okay. I mean, let's see how it goes today, but for me, I may be fine just like sending you an email, like thumbs up. Happy to continue to meet Wednesday, but it may not be necessary. I just want to like read it and before I actually vote on it, make sure I've read the whole thing.
Yeah, you do. I want you all to do that. My lawyer said that we probably do need to have a public meeting to say yes or no to this, but if there's agreement that no substantive edits are reached, or no one has signaled that they have substantive edits, that it's clear to go, then we could also do it that way. But let's go ahead and walk through it. Let's talk through if people have concerns right now, and then we can come back to that. But it sounds like we might need to put aside 20 or 30 minutes Wednesday or Thursday, depending on if there are concerns. Okay. So just so you all probably seen the document is broken up really into kind of a background, which really focused on EV goals in the state, a breakdown of different state policies that we are aware of, obviously the NEVI policy and one local jurisdiction, and then also a detailed discussion of the various state agencies that may or may not make sense to put this with, and just an overview of what they do with EVs. At that point in time, what I've done with our recommendations is broke it into the 3 parts, which is basically how the framework would work, then who should possibly do it, and then a lot of detail regarding those like 19 or 20 items that were listed within SB 958 or 951. And so I'm happy to jump through all those, but in all of those, it was really kind of a, here's what we wanted to do. I tried then to capture the pros and cons that came up within our various meetings about issues within it. Maybe if there was some research that we were aware of from other states having acted on it, I tried to capture that. And then obviously ultimately said here is where majority of members ever wanted to go on a topic. And so that is the breakdown of how basically each section runs. Just really quick. So the executive summary, that's obviously just why we're doing this, high level conclusions. Paul has asked for a conclusion to be inserted about what we decided with weights and measures. Basically that they should continue to maintain their oversight and that they should be allowed to have their requested budget. That was put in the JCR report. That's what he was at this time. And I can get that circulated. Let's see here. Current goals in Maryland related to EVs or how they will impact meeting state climate goals. Projections about numbers. Paul did have a request for the group. If we knew how many projected, let's see, what did he ask of me? Sorry. Scott, I can't access, you were on the thread. He wanted to know a certain number of EVs.
Yeah. He said, is there a readily available number for L2 and DCFC that were funded by other state agencies under the VW diesel and other state grants? So I think
And
he's
that is the number.
asking for
Go ahead.
non-utility.
Right.
That sounds like he wants a non-utility number. Unless I'm mistaken.
Yep. So I guess Amanda or Diego, do you guys have a running count of how many chargers have been funded by your agencies? Publicly available?
I don't know if we have one readily available. I think perhaps the bulk would be MEA funded or the VW funded through MDE.
And we do have a tallied list. We would have to, it would take time to put it together, but yeah, we do have an MEA list for the level 2.
Time,
Yeah,
if you could do it in like 24. Go ahead, Scott.
I think the point is that he wants to compare the utility percentage or market share kind of with those funded from other state agencies. So the 17% of L2s and 15% of DC fast chargers, and then make a comparison with that and the state agency funded ones. I think that's the point.
I guess. So, Diego, is that something you can do within like 24 hours, or is that more like we need till the end of the week to pull a number together?
End of the week would be really a preference for us.
All right. Well, that's, I think, too late to pull a number together. So I think my opinion on that one is unless somebody can get me some numbers very quickly, we're going to just leave it as is, if that's okay with members. Okay. Okay, and then the other request from Paul in this section was he wanted to insert after, I think he wanted basically a statement about uptime, about reliability of stations. And so we wanted to insert a statement about Tesla has had a good uptime ratings over the last 10 years. I've asked him for a citation of that. I've also asked if we could have a lead in to that statement because it would be coming out of nowhere in the write-up. And so I think my proposal is if we do what Paul is asking here, that we would cite the JD Power report that talks about concerns regarding uptime related to EVs, though we do note that there are some success stories such as Tesla. And then that would just be a statement that I would insert probably at the end of this section.
Yeah,
Does anyone
and
have concerns with that?
there are a couple citations that I could provide. I mean, I would suggest a localized one from Plug-in Sites. Plug-in Sites, which is a locally focused EV site, has done Tesla uptime surveys and for September and October of this year, and that would back up the 99% number.
Is that the one that Lanny's running?
Yeah.
Could we maybe consider using JD Power along with there's I think Plug-in America, or there's at least one other source I've looked at that talks about Tesla versus everyone else.
Yeah, I've seen sources like that too. Yeah, I can pursue that if you want.
That's what. Yeah, just I mean, I also don't. We could cite also Lanny's survey, as there are concerned citizens within Maryland that also do their own review of this.
Mm-hmm.
I would if we wanted to couch it that way as well.
Yeah, there's more than just Lanny's support for that, so I could help you track that down.
Okay, yeah, you could just send me that. Go ahead.
This is David. I think that's a really good idea to put this in the report, and the reason I think it's good, the main reason, is just because if there's any pushback as to what uptimes are, what uptimes can be, how to pull everything together as far as one app in the future, that kind of thing. While there are a lot of challenges for the industry, it can be done and is being done, granted by one private company, which makes it easier. I'm sorry, one publicly traded company, which makes it easier because it's just one input. But if there's anybody that's saying, oh, we don't know if we can do this, yeah, no, we can do it. It's being done already. And I think that's why it's good to put that in there. Thank you.
Okay. Caitlin with EVgo.
If this statement is put in, I think that we need to be careful about this, because I think there are definitely a lot of reasons why uptime is a confusing statistic. The way Tesla has reported uptime is not necessarily aligned with how other companies do it, or even how NEVI has done in the past. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison. And up until recently, Tesla was not interoperable. So they were working with one type of vehicle manufacturer for their charging. So there's a lot of complications that come with being open to many drivers and being able to have that communication work seamlessly. So I do not think that it's a fair comparison to make at this time. There's been reports of how Tesla has handled their NACS rollout, and how that's some difficulties have come up with working with different manufacturers, which are what other EVSE companies have been doing for a couple years now. So I would respectfully like to say that this quote should not either be included or would be tempered with a lot of reasons why the statistic is the way it is. I think this goes to the ownership models that we've talked about in the past and some of the differences there. Thank you.
Josh.
Yeah, I was going to basically make Caitlin's point, not so much about how Tesla calculates uptime, but just really the broader point that up until very recently, the Tesla charging stations have been a closed network for a single provider. And other people who know more about the industry than I do can speak to this better than me, but a lot of the thought is that Tesla originally spent millions rolling out this charging network as a way to sell the vehicles, as opposed to being a profit center for the charging originally. And so, like, the whole economics behind it is not necessarily, it's not apples to apples. I do think, to Delegate Fraser Hidalgo's point, that like to include this in here as an example, like, all this other stuff aside, experience has shown, or Tesla has shown that they can have a reliable uptime charging network, or, something like that. But to Caitlin's point, like, there's some big asterisks associated with that compared to other public and interoperable charging.
So Josh, could I offer, and then we'll turn it over to the others, but could I offer, we would, something along the lines of, we cite the JD Power report findings that there are concerns with reliability of charging stations. I don't think anyone's disagreeing that there's concerns in the industry about it. Then we could cite to, I'm aware of, I think, at least one, if not two plus sources that kind of try and understand the underlying things of it. I'm not going to say I have time to I tried to do this, I think, last week, and that's part of why this is coming late to you all, was trying to get that done in a useful manner, and I just finally threw my hands in there and had to move on. But something along the lines that said that basically just points to, like, there are studies on these issues that also try to delve into this more based off of these studies. I mean, even JD Power states like Tesla's done the best. So we could, without calling out numbers, just point out that there's certain networks such as Tesla have done better than others, has been discussed. But then we just simply kind of leave it as high level, like there could be various reasons for this, and then just kind of drop it there. I don't have time to write a book report on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's for everyone.
For me, I'd be comfortable if we mention Tesla, which I think is appropriate in this context, the Tesla network, just adding just some additional language that the Tesla charging network, up until very recently has been privately accessible, or however you want to describe it, only available to Tesla drivers, and was I don't know how you want to wordsmith this, but basically is part of a broader play of an automotive OEM as opposed to a standalone charging network. So something that, I don't know, I think you understand where I'm coming from.
All right. That's anything I do. Delegate, I'm going to start with you and then see if others, but does what I've just kind of outlined, would that work for you in terms of trying to state there's issues, point that there is somebody who's done well, but also trying to add some of these qualifiers people are asking about?
Yeah.
That's fine with me. I mean, I think that's fine with me. And the reason I say that is because it is apples to oranges, but it is possible. My only point is that the reason I support it is because it is possible, and I think that that's what we need to strive toward. But I am fully cognizant of the fact that we're a little bit apples to oranges here. So, yep, it's fine with me. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. All right, then members, what I will do is I will draft. Scott, if you have some sources you could send me, or others, but basically I will try and craft a 2 to 4 sentences around this issue and have that in your inbox for review on this idea that it's going to talk about. Yeah. All right. And I'll also tell you where I think I'm going to drop it. I'm not sure if this is where I want to drop it, but yeah. Drop it. Sent. All right. And do. All right. Other things about background related to state goals, where number of cars in the industry, or number of chargers out there, anything like that. Josh, just see your hand up.
Thanks. This is actually a request for the executive summary. I didn't get my hand up early enough.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I would appreciate if other members are comfortable with this. Just some language that like these recommendations in this work group, in this report, unless they specifically state unanimity or something like that, like reflect a general consensus, and individual members, even where there, a general consensus is reflected, like there may be disagreements from individual members, something like that. And I think from what I've read of the report, Ben, you do a really nice job of like walking through the different questions we considered, saying where there's unanimity, saying where there's disagreement, saying where there's like a general sense or general agreement. But just from, for me, where I'm, engaging with policymakers and others, not just in Maryland, but in other states, it's really important that someone doesn't see, oh, well, this Maryland work group that you were on voted, for X, Y, or Z. So it would be helpful to have just like some concise little thing I can point to, right? Where though I'm very supportive of this report overall, just to have it clearly said that, and except where you've stated there's unanimity, that members may have disagreements and differing opinions, something like that.
I think I tried to stay away from stating anything had unanimous support, though I could go back through and try and do that. One, because I never had a full group there on the vote. Two, on that very point. So there was unanimous support. This report. What's on the screen, Josh? Does that cover what you're trying to say?
Yeah, that works for me. Thank you.
All right, other members, are you okay with this lead-in? I see thumb up from Matt. Is there any opposition to this edit, this red line? Okay. Anything else before I go into the different states? All right. Going down to the different states, we talk about NEVI and the federal. We talk about NEVI. We talk about California, New Jersey. We mentioned New York, but also note that nothing happened there ultimately due to a veto. And I also mentioned the Philadelphia legislation that just passed recently. And then we talk about what's happening in Maryland related to these topics. Anyone have concerns with any of the summaries I've put together on the states? All right. All right. Then, all right. So now I'm going to hop into the proposed framework. So that's the entire background. All right. So proposed framework, I broke into the 4 parts, which were basically definitions of who should be in, registration and implementation, data reporting and tracking, and then the enforcement decision, which is probably a little broader than enforcement, but I'm kind of just using that as a catch-all for now. And then I mentioned the 2 principles we all discussed in the beginning about wanting stations to work as advertised versus making sure we don't unduly hamper deployment. So who should be subject, as we've all discussed previously, anyone who's engaged in a financial transaction should be subject to some form of oversight. And then the definition that we all discussed previously. And then I get into the distinctions that we made as a group, which was the shared private and workplace MUD deployment. I'm on page 17 to 18 for those of you following along at home. Utility owned EVSE. when I realized when we had voted on this previously, this part that I have added was nowhere in what we had voted on. So there was no definition of what utility owned EVSE is. So I added some language for you all to consider. And I basically say this would fall into the publicly funded category at the end of the day, but it's a specific call out for a niche group of chargers. Then the shared public-private discussion that we had, the publicly funded, and then basically our catch-all other. Additionally, last time we discussed all of this, we had agreed that we should have some call out for some of the technical distinctions that we are going to make, which is level 2 charging, DC fast charging, and network charging. On the network charging, I try for level 2 and DC fast charging, I pulled those out of NEVI. For network charger, that I basically just have more of a discussion about what it is. I know at one point we all were having a discussion about can network charging assess a fee or not. There is some literature that implies network chargers could charge customers, so I just put a discussion about that down below in the footnotes as well. And then the other thing in here is free charging. I just made sure to have that call out that they should be generally exempt from regulatory requirements, but we do want them registered. So that's kind of a summary of where the group came down. Any questions on this area or concerns with what I've put together? All right. Registration implementation. I tried to categorize this or break it down a little further than how when we were all discussing it as to make it cleaner between registration and timelines for compliance. So the 3 to 12 month timeline that we all agreed to for new versus existing to register with the state. This is where I discussed the idea that we think we do need education. And then I also point out at this point that we do have different state agencies have different areas related to charging stations, and that we'll need to, while not fully agreed in the work group, there will need to be some discussion about coordination in terms of how this information is disseminated. What else? So compliance, this is our discussion about should this is where I've tried to break down how long should existing chargers have to come into compliance with the rules. I do at this point, this is where there is about a paragraph dedicated to that discussion we had about the prospective versus nature of should the rules be prospective or not prospective. So that's where this discussion got housed. And then, because that's where we took the vote to have the historic chargers, existing chargers under the framework as well. And then go into the grace period discussion. If you all recall, we never had a full majority on any one of the timelines. So I outlined the timelines that we discussed and listed which one got the most support of the group. All right, and then communication. So this is basically just highlighting the issue of network providers versus owners, and that there could be some concerns about, well, whose name should be on the charger, who should be coordinating, and this is where I basically put where I make it clear that we were recommending that under the framework, the owner is in charge of everything, but there should be allowances made for them to designate others to do the work on their behalf. All right, questions on the registration and compliance section. All right, data reporting and tracking. I kept this one to a bare minimum. So basically, here's the data we all agreed should be reported at a minimum, but all the details are left to the implementing agency. The one thing I did want to clarify with you all is that we set uptime at the port level here when we took our vote. But then in our recommendations for the 20 things that were to be considered, one of them is uptime at the port level or the connector level. And what we agreed there was that was going to be an implementing issue that was left for the agency. So my proposal is to strike this port level statement because the group to not reach a conclusion on that. Questions? Any opposition to striking at port level?
I'm sorry, can you explain why you want to strike that again?
So in the, give me a minute. I'm going to page 32. So with, or I guess it's page 31 to 32, we talk about the reliability standard and measuring how and set requiring they have a 97% uptime. On page 32, 4 of the issues that we outlined in terms of things that the group may or may not make recommendations on were whether uptime is calculated at the port level or the connector level, the date to which downtime is backdated, whether downtime includes the charging station being disconnected, or basically broken screens and exemptions. We said leave all that to the implementing agency to determine when they set the 97% uptime. And then I cite back to the PSC proceeding where 3 of these 4 issues were debated and the commission had to make calls for various reasons on those and tried to outline in the appendix that discussion. So when we were all talking as a group, these were the 4 that we said leave to the implementing agency. So to align what we decided down here with up above at the reporting at the port level, I was suggesting we strike the port level up above because we deferred that decision to the agency down below. We could leave it, and then that's just something that gets cleaned up when the legislature decides what they want to do with all this. I just noted there was an inconsistency when I was writing.
And then the PSC found that it should be measured at the connector level, not the port level. So that's why you want to take out port level now to make it to still let the implementing agency follow PSC practice. Is that right?
Well, it's their call if they want to, but yes. I mean, I think all the charging companies on here would tell you to leave it at the port level because that's NEVI. And I'm also okay. Like, but I think I'm saying we have an inconsistency in the report here with that statement.
Mhm.
Which is the only reason I'm talking about it, right?
Yeah, Ben, I mean, without getting into the merits of port versus connector, just from a process standpoint, taking it out is consistent, as you're saying, with the actual, the recommendations that we voted on, where this topic was just part of like the broad bucket of reliability standards that the work groups advised the implementing agency to figure out relative to and give deference to NEVI, but not specify in this report. So to your point, like if we included a specific thing in this report, it would conflict with the recommendation we voted on, as I remember.
That's all. But Senator, did that answer your question?
It did. I'm still thinking about it. I mean, to be
Okay.
consistent, I get it. Yeah, if you taking it out, makes sense. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it goes to the content, which we don't need to discuss here and now. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead and take it out. I don't see an issue with that.
All right. I'll take it out. We're going to have to reconvene anyways. So if everyone have one chance to look at it. All right. The enforcement section. So we got a laundry list of things that came out of the enforcement vote when we were coming up with the framework. So I tried to parse it into usable sections. And then Josh and Matt, I also tried to capture where you both came down in your votes, because I know you wanted explicit call outs here. So we had the publicly funded EVSE that is publicly facing will be subject to uptime and reporting framework and potential penalties, and that is outlined here. And I think I could actually note, I think I'm not aware of any opposition to this recommendation. I think maybe other than maybe the prospective nature of it. The next one is the privately funded EVSE that is publicly funded, and basically the large discussion that we had every meeting regarding the appropriateness of this requirement, and the tension that arose out of it, and then the ultimate compromise that there would be reporting for some of them, but not all of them, and that there would be a report November 1st every year on this issue. And then the tiered requirements for privately funded EVSEs. This is page 25 for those following along at home. This is where we break down the DC fast charging reporting requirement versus the non-DC fast charging, and having to provide a longevity maintenance plan, and the concerns parties had about that longevity maintenance plan. I then also bring up the decommissioning discussion, and then make it clear about what the group is doing with civil penalties, because that is a specific call out that we had to make a recommendation upon to the legislature. Questions, concerns, statements, things people need me to go into on. All right. Then hopping into who should administer the program. So this is basically a rehashing of our discussions around who or who should not be in charge of overseeing the oversight. MEA, you get completely basically left out. Congratulations. And then I walked through the MDA. I focus a lot of ink on MDA, PSC, and MDOT. And the respective roles of those three agencies and why or why not they make sense there. I call out that MDOT I call out MDA and the PSC as being the two that people were most focused on. And then comptroller, I do indicate that there was some discussion around you, but ultimately you did not get a vote. And then I also, state agencies, call out the discussion around the budgets, and give a table here. I then take, each of you provided me how you came up with these numbers, and that is included in the appendix in the back. So that's probably a good 5+ pages of the appendix are dedicated to these numbers, to the development of these numbers and what you gave me. If there's qualifiers that you need around those budgets, need them. Otherwise, that's what's going out. I have tried to make it clear that these were all drafts and how they were developed, so that they're all subject to change at a later date, depending on what legislation is developed. Thoughts, concerns, comments? All right, and then from page 30 to 45 or 43 is basically the breakdown of those larger topics that we were required to respond to in the implementing legislation. This is reliability. These were where we talked about, and I broke them into those categories of reliability, system design, consumer standards, and regulatory standards. And this is where we talk about the 97% uptime, and where we say a lot of this should be left to the implementing agency, but also as requested, I tried to, in an appendix, summarize how the commission has handled these issues before. And Scott, I also included your flow chart as an example as well. I try to caveat these as these things aren't conclusive, but in terms of being examples.
Yeah, I saw that. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, design standards. This is basically minimum power output and connectors, and effectively we all agreed not to create design standards through this group, but instead to focus on where these items to just function as designed, and that's what we're going to focus on. Consumer standards, these are the ones where we did spend a lot of time as a group discussing them. This has to do with the payment methods, memberships, and this is where I did try to capture, here's what we are, and these try to follow flow of, here's what we're recommending. If I have a good why, a why, but I try and capture the discussions that happened around these within the paragraphs that follow the recommendation. So there was the membership, and then also in instances where I was aware of different states having a requirement around these, I tried to make a citation to those. So some of these you'll see, I think like on the training one, I cite to, I think the 3 or 4 states that are currently requiring EV ITP as a requirement within their state, so people are aware of those. Any questions on these, or anyone want me to dive into any particular on the consumer standards? All right. And the last one was regulatory standards, which is on page 43. 2 of them we've already discussed up above. 2 of them we hadn't. Those 2 were the data reporting requirements and the proactive monitoring requirements. And then finally, and then that's the conclusion. And then we get into the appendixes, which is who's in the group, the detailed explanation of state budgets, or that laundry list of items we had to address as a group. I tried to, here in Appendix C, put them in the order that they show up in the implementing legislation, and then give the high level conclusions. I did, members, please note, I did make grammatical corrections or throughout these from what we had all voted on. So if you look through them and you want to look, I did send to you what we had all voted on previously. So if you want to look at the 2 to make sure that you agree it still goes with what we said, but that I did make some work. I did like make sure where it said, we used to say give authority to oversee. I said give implementing agency authority to oversee. That kind of edit. And then finally, the summary of how the PSC has previously handled some issues related to uptime and Scott Wilson's flow chart. All right. Questions, comments, things people need to discuss. All right. Stop sharing real quick. All right. Give me 1 second. My apologies. Trying to get the calendar. So I guess the members, would it be helpful for me to put 15 minutes on your calendars on Thursday for a final vote on this, but if no substantive comments are received by, let's say, like Wednesday at noon, that we'll consider it good? Is there any opposition to that?
I'm good with that.
See a lot of thumbs up. All right, check the calendar. Week. Could everyone meet from 3 to 3:30 on Thursday? We could also look after 4.
Thursday, is that right?
Thursday. Yes, Thursday.
That works for me.
All right. And that's what we'll plan to do. Oh, you cannot meet then. Senator, when's a good time? When's a good time for you on Thursday? Or is Wednesday a better date?
I could do 2 to 3, between 2 and 3 on Thursday.
2:30 to 3. I have a meeting that concludes at 2:30. So people do 2:30 to 3.
Or I could do 1:30. I could do 1:30.
No, we'll see if we can do 2:30 because I have another EV work group meeting where I think some of the other members on there will be on that one before we could go off that meeting, I guess. All right, and we will do 2:30 to 3 on Thursday. I want to thank everyone for your flexibility and thank you for getting this over the finish line. So, and then if everyone can, before noon on Wednesday, let me know if you have edits. I will get what we just went through sent out to you. I'll try and get the 1 paragraph write-up written up before it comes to you.
Ben, just so
Go ahead,
I'm
Josh.
clear- yeah, thanks. The this Thursday afternoon meeting is optional, depending on if there's any substantive edits that come in after today.
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
actually,
you, Ben.
so
Great job.
I have a question. So are we actually, don't we need to take an actual vote on the report or no?
No, we do. We do need to take a vote. Yes, we do have to take that vote. So let's, thank you. I get in trouble with somebody if I didn't do that. All right. So the vote is, well, Josh, I think I have to draft that paragraph, which I think is considered a substantive edit. So let's just have it. It will be quick. So yes, let's just have it. 2:30. That's when we'll take the vote to be official and be done. Because I think that paragraph qualifies as a substantive edit. So, all right,
Ben,
go ahead,
Ben.
Rachel.
would it be possible to email MDA's vote? That time doesn't work for either of us. We'll be facilitating the Governor's Intergovernmental Commission on Agriculture here in person from 1 to 3 on Thursday, but we can submit a vote via email.
I think that's okay. Let me check with a lawyer, but I think if you're the only one doing it, I think we'll check, but let's plan on that for now. Do it all by the books. Okay. All right. Other questions?
Thank you, Ben. I know it's a lot of work. Excellent. Excellent
Thank
work.
you all. Thank you. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.